For a process to be well managed, three things must apply. A process must have a clearly understood purpose, it must have practical and useful performance measures, and it must be someone's job to ensure that those first two are aligned. That statement neatly summarises the complete theory and practice of process-based management. Each of those three elements has its challenges, but it's the second that causes most problems, having practical and useful performance measures. And we have to meet that challenge because without useful measurement, we aren't managing our processes and we can't know if we're improving them. In a previous video, we discussed how to discover the best process KPIs. In this video, I want to continue that conversation with some insights into how to discover the best targets for those best KPIs, to bring them alive as powerful performance enablers. This is a process that we were talking about in the previous video when we're looking to identify the KPI. And for our process recruit employee, I decided that percentage of first offers accepted from all offers per month would be a great process KPI. So we've established the KPI, but what's the target? Well, perhaps there's more than one target. We've yet to do that. That's a second step. And they are separate steps. What's the right KPI? And then how do we set or reset the target? So let's talk about how that might happen. Do you remember the process performance question? This is it. If this process was working as well as its key stakeholders would want it to, what would it be doing and how would we know? That's the question right at the center of all of our process-based management. What's the process? Who are the stakeholders? What do they need out of it? How do we measure that? How would we know if it's being achieved? That's the process performance question. And that's what we're attempting to answer, of course, with KPIs and their targets. Now, in setting targets for our KPIs, there's some things we will not do. These are some of them. Last year plus or minus something, or the same as last year. That's not good enough. If it's something we measured last year and we're measuring this year, obviously it's going to have a relationship to it, but our choice about what to measure has got to be a lot more mindful than that, not just some random guess. Management by Magazine will tell us that everybody measures 90% or 30%, or here's some number. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it's wrong for us, but it doesn't mean it's right either. So we need to be mindful about that. I think we need to be careful about stretch targets. Of course, we want to improve. We're in the continuous improvement business. So we want to find opportunities and preempt problems to maintain and improve performance, for sure. But if it's a stretch target and people don't believe in it, then I don't know that it's a target anymore. I think if someone hears the target and they think, okay, yeah, well, we can't possibly do that, but we'll do our best, then I don't think we've got a target anymore. We've got some kind of aspiration. And the extreme version of a stretch target, of course, are perfection targets. 0%, 100%. It'll never go wrong. Everyone will always be happy. 100% of our customers will rate us 10 out of 10. Well, that's all very nice and aspirational, but nobody's going to treat that as a serious target. So I think we've lost the opportunity then to actually have a target that we commit to actually achieving. And to say, okay, here's the target, here's the gap, what's it costing, what's the business case? It's just some aspirational thing now, and it's not a meaningful management tool. So we need to be careful about those things. And we're certainly not going to choose something just because it looks good. Here's something that's been 80%, for the last 3 years. So let's make the target 80%. If something actually is a constant, we don't need to measure it. And we want to not always have our performance perfect. We want to find mistakes, don't we? We want to find opportunities for improvement. We want to find problems. In the continuous improvement business, we're also in the continuous problem finding business, the continuous opportunity finding business. So our KPIs and our targets need to be tools that we can use to discover those opportunities for improvement. Where are the performance gaps that we can think about filling? So we're not going to use any of those techniques, but there are a range of things that we might do, and here's some of them. We may well have historic data that will give us some baseline. We might be able to do market research. That'll depend on the industry and the process and what data is available, but there are some good market research sources out there. You need to be careful about that kind of data and make sure it's actually good for you, not just good for someone else. But obviously, market research is important. Now, of course, we're trying to keep our stakeholders happy, so we could just ask them. We could just ask them what this KPI means for them, what good performance would look like, what bad performance means for them. Ask them what they think the targets should be. Sometimes there's just a financial necessity. We have to achieve some financial goal, some strategic goal that we just need to do. We might be experimenting. So sometimes we might say, okay, we're going to make this change to a process, and we think if we make that change, it will have this impact. Okay, now we might need a particular KPI to know whether that's happened or not. And maybe that's a permanent thing, or maybe it's a temporary thing. So if we're running some experiments, we might have particular KPIs and targets to be able to track what's happening. Regulators might tell us what we need to measure in some cases, so that's easy. Competitive comparisons might be useful. Again, it's kind of benchmark data. It's someone else's good practice. Does that mean it's right for us? It might do, but we need to be mindful about that. Is it actually what we need? And sometimes, when we're doing something that's novel, there just isn't any background. There's no benchmark. Nobody's done this before. And sometimes that's the case when we're measuring, the performance of a cross-functional process. This is not common. So, if we take our percentage of first offers accepted, has that ever been measured? Is there a lot of data about that? Perhaps we don't know. And if there's nothing that we can do like that, then maybe the best we can do is take our KPI to, say, 5 people who might know something about it and ask them what they think the target should be. And now we've got 5 numbers, average them. We've got a number. Is it the right target? Is it the perfect target? Probably not, but it's a target. It's an interim target. We can get on with it. And you never know, maybe it'll turn out to be good. So we need something. We need a target. So there's plenty of ways in which we can come up with a target. And the more depth of analysis that's behind that target, the better, of course. But if there's nothing, then let's start creating the data on which that further analysis can be done later. Now, sometimes it's not so simple. We use examples like 9 out of 10 or 30% single number targets, but sometimes it's not like that. We might say we want 90% of our customers to rate us 9 out of 10, but perhaps we want to be more detailed than that. That's a very broad average number, perhaps. We might want to know something about customers by their status, by product type, by time of year or time of a business cycle. We might want to know something about the size of the customer spend. Maybe we've just recently had some promotion and we want to know what impact that's had. So just keep in mind that sometimes it's a single number or sometimes it's an n-dimensional matrix that we're trying to measure. We always want to keep it as simple as possible, but no simpler. So if it needs to be a matrix, then it needs to be a matrix. And we've just got lots of numbers, lots of targets we need to assign to the cells of that matrix. Now, sometimes our targets can just be plain dangerous. They can be limitations. They can disguise something that's going on. So we've got KPIs and targets and everything's green. Everyone's happy. But are we measuring the right things? Are we still measuring the right things? Is it the right KPI even? Now, one of the nodes, the respond node of the PO circle, has 3 things we can do at that node. And one of them is to review the KPIs and the targets. And we should be doing that on a regular basis. So just because everyone's happy doesn't mean it's a good thing, obviously, but it doesn't mean that we're measuring the right things still. So we might want to review that from time to time. And our targets could actually set a performance limit. We've set 90% and we're getting 92 and 93% all the time. So do we stick with 90% or have we got a 90% mindset now? But there is a business case for making it 98%. So we should review that. So we want to achieve the target, but we don't want to think about it as a limitation either. If there's a business case to do better, then we should do. And also let's ask what could be possible. Everything's going well. Stakeholders are happy. Everything's green, but is there something else we could do? Is there something else the process could do? What could actually happen? What could we do differently to radically improve the process performance to everyone's benefit? That's a good question to ask. What could be? Now, back to our original process, recruit employee. We said the KPI was percentage of first offers accepted from all offers per month. But what percentage? Well, the point of putting this back in here is to say, of course, that having just discussed the complexities and the nuances of how we might come up with a process KPI, what we don't do is come back and guess. We might be able to speculate, and reasonably so, that having gone through an elaborate evaluation process and made an offer, we'd like perhaps nearly all of our offers to be accepted. So maybe the target is going to be in the 90%, perhaps the high 90%. But we've got to take advice about that. We've got to think about it. We've got to make mindful choices about it and then be able to compare that to historic data or start collecting some historic data if we don't have it so that we can understand the performance gaps that we might be dealing with. So let's pull all this together. Let's summarize. So our KPI discovery and the target assignment, similar in many ways, but both need to be very specific. They need to be created mindfully and meaningful targets, not just some random number, not someone else's number. It's got to have meaning. And oftentimes the conversation about this is as important as the actual result. It might be a number, it might be a matrix. We want it to be as simple as possible, but no simpler. And we need to be careful that our targets don't become limitations. Yes, we're always achieving the target. Okay, well, maybe we can do better. Is there a business case for doing better? And we will be measuring what is, that's current performance, and we'll know what should be, that's the current target, and we'll know what will be, that's our prediction for what's going to happen in the future. But very importantly, the fourth question we should be asking is what could be? We know what good looks like. What would exceptional look like? Is there something we can do in a cost-effective way for this process that would be an extraordinary outcome for our stakeholders? So what could be? So we need the right KPIs, and we need then the right targets for those KPIs. And if I think about it, if we don't have the right KPIs and the right targets, then I don't think we can do process management very well. And we wouldn't know whether we're doing process improvement.